Okay, people, welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Podcast. We're in today for episode 140. And just before planning this episode, I really just sort of took some time to reflect on how far the series has came and a little bit of a story, especially because we've picked up momentum. A lot of you guys listening to this right now may not have been listening, from episode 10, episode 20, episode 30. I actually used to be a personal trainer. So as we know now, the majority of the business is online. However, I did come from a personal training background where I was working in gyms, training people, that type of stuff. A lot of you will know the industry. Now, when I was initially starting the podcast, obviously I was in the gym long hours. I was doing from open till close. I was being in the gym networking. So I had to sort of find time to get content out because it's still an important part of the business. And I remember, you got to remember, I was only young at the time, but I always had this drive to prove myself and make my vision come true. And some of the earliest memories of this podcast, what I used to do was there was a little cleaning cabinet and you'd have to go down past the change rooms and it would be right tucked away in this little corner. And I remember talking there because it was the only quiet place that I could get. And some of my earliest memories doing, episodes 1 through 10, sometimes into sort of like 15 and 20, were literally just in the back of a storage cleaning cupboard in a gym that I used to work at whilst I was on my apprenticeship, earning £3.50 an hour. And now here we are doing episode 140, The vision still hasn't came true yet, but we've made a lot of progress since, and having you guys here listen, making sure that we build the community, the feedback that we're getting, is absolutely ridiculous. We're in today for a solo episode, which I'm feeling good about. It's been a while since we've actually done an episode, just me, you and a mic. So we've had a lot of guests on recently, which has been massive for networking, and the fire is still lit even from weeks ago when we have done these link-ups and networks with other guests. So, and it does tie into this episode as well. We are going to go into networking and surroundings, but I have my twists on stuff, my sort of takes on stuff, which will give you guys a lot of more value because I can translate into ways that are going to be easier to follow and easier to deploy into your day-to-day routines. The main thing with any podcast, I always want to make sure that even if you take away one thing or 10 things, just make sure that if you learn something, you apply it. Again, another example of myself, the book that I'm reading right now is called Amplify Your Influence by Renee Rodriguez, and it's a lot on public speaking, human behavioural patterns, how the brain works and stuff like that. And I'll be honest, so far the book has been complete shite. Like, it literally has just been, it's been okay for just reminding me what I already know, but then it started to get onto frames of reference, and that has actually been really beneficial, something that I will apply. So that's a prime example of whilst something may not be completely useful, you may not apply or relate to everything from this podcast. If there is at least 1% or even 0.1%, if that's possible, make sure that you apply it. Make sure that you put it into your routines, put it into your day-to-day habits, and make sure that you actually grow from it. Because I don't just do this for entertainment. It is something I enjoy doing. Content is what I like, but I'm not here to entertain you guys. I'm here to help you guys grow, develop, be strong, be masculine, be powerful, and achieve your goals that you set out. So the topic that I want to cover today is building a bulletproof mindset in 2023. Now, time changes, and the very nature of humanity is to evolve. Things change, they have to change, and when they do change, we have to adapt. So it's important that we've done similar episodes before. I might have even done a similar topic in 2022 or 2021. But again, time changes, things have evolved, things have changed. I'm in different chapters of my life. I can't remember who said that, but it was actually a really cool perspective. I think that life moves in chapters, and the chapter that I'm in now is more advanced, it's different, the environment's changed, and I'm about to go into another chapter very shortly this year as well. So you're always going to go through chapters. When you go through new chapters, you meet new people, develop new connections, you have to adapt and you have to keep moving, because your vision, your goals should always stay the same. It's just sometimes your environment and sometimes things will change. So building a bulletproof mindset in 2023 is going to be the baseline of what we go through today. And it's important because there's a lot of stuff under attack at the moment. It's clear that there's been an agenda pushed, especially for sort of like the male masculinity side of things. It's why I've sort of taken a shine into it, because you have guys like, Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate. Whilst they are very controversial individuals, they've done absurd amounts for me because they make you realise that you can speak what's on your mind and you can speak freely, and it achieves a sense of peace and contentment, knowing that you don't really have to fake anything. I'm sure you've seen that Japanese story before where you have three faces. The faces that you show to the public, people that you generally work with, haven't met before. You've then got the second face, which you show to close people, partners, spouses, family, relatives, that type of stuff. and then you have the third and final phase, which you only show to yourself. And I think it's important to almost cut a line through all three, and you need to have sort of simultaneous connectivity through all three phases, because otherwise what happens is, yes, I want you to grow, but if you're growing from a false perception of yourself and you're keeping up with images, much like I did in the past, please take it from me that shit gets hard and it gets exhausting and it just will not work long term. So the idea here is that, whatever you're feeling, especially with a world that is attacking a lot of stuff right now, it's almost little stuff like Andrew Tate the Word has become like Voldemort, and it's crazy. There's probably some of you right now that are just thinking, oh, not this again. If you are one of them people, you've got to think, why, like, what ammunition have you got to believe these things? And for me, it's all about, what someone says and what someone teaches are two very, very different things. So I've gone off a bit of a tangent there, but the idea here is, building a bulletproof mindset. I've got certain characters to thank because I've allowed myself to speak freely. There is no filter that can be put on me. There is nothing that can stop me from saying what I feel. And even more so with the progress poll that's coming, if stuff does get censored, I'm working on a literal platform that is free, much like you would find with Instagram, much like you would find with YouTube, no payments, no nothing. It's literally going to be a platform where it is just pure development, pure power, pure, teamwork and community, just to make sure that we are all on the same page. So even if stuff does get censored, you best believe I'm already working on stuff behind the scenes. So for those of you who are listening, I want you to pay attention to that one and keep up to date, because April is when we change everything in the game. But yeah, let's get into some actual take-homes. Let's get into some points, some systems, and some strategies. The first one that we need to work on is your why. Now, I've focused on this numerous times, especially if you do tune into the episodes quite often. Building your why is absolutely crucial. He who has a why can endure any how. Now, that's taken from a book from Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And the premise of that book was that he was basically in a concentration camp, and he was still finding happiness in a freaking concentration camp. And we're not just talking, stuff like where he was on the outskirts and he escaped. This guy was in the thick of it. Like, the book goes into some grimy details, and yet he was still able to find not happiness, but he still was able to determine the outcome of how he felt. He had, good emotional awareness, and he could, turn negatives into positives. That was because he has a why. Now, if you don't have a why, if you are, navigating around this world without any goals and you're just winging it, you're just sort of at that 9 to 5, just pacing it, and you're just sort of waiting. And a lot of people, what they do here is they put too much reassurance in the future self. I see it all the time, absurd amounts of time. I'll train on Monday, and maybe by next year I'll have a 6-pack, and maybe by next year I'll be able to deadlift 5 plates. And I know I'm not going on holiday this year, but next year I'll go on holiday and I'll be in shape. Too much reassurance in their future self, but you need to understand that your future self will not be there if you aren't putting in the work right now. I obviously have the coaching business, I have the marketing business where we sort of specialise in web design, marketing, copywriting, all that type of stuff. A lot of that in business, in fact, the entirety of that business, Monday Media, all came about because when we was back in lockdown and everyone was crying and mourning and stressing about lockdowns and coaches were all complaining, I used to literally lock myself in my room. Bearing in mind I was living in my mate's spare bedroom, and all I used to do was drink and just the typical consensus of what people were doing in lockdown. I would lock myself in my room and literally just sit on Wix and watch YouTube and Photoshop and Adobe Suite, and I would literally just learn skills. I learned to build websites, I built members areas, I was mastering Photoshop, colour grading, all that type of stuff. And I'll be honest, the quality of it was absolutely shit, but it laid the foundations for where I'm at now. And I'm very entrepreneurial. Like, I want lots of businesses, I want to be on a global level, but for me to get there I have to be doing the work right now. So just because of the things that I'm doing now, those doors became open because of what I was doing 2-3 years ago. And that's the exact same to you guys. Don't put reassurance in your future self. You need to make sure that if you want something in the future, you're doing it in the present and now, because it won't happen if you're not doing the work, if you're not opening up those doors manually. Put your foot right through the door and show the world who you are. I spent a lot of time not knowing, I sort of knew who I was, or at least I wanted to know I knew who I wanted to become. So I'd look in the mirror and I'd be like, that's who I want to become. But because I was so shy, timid, and I would procrastinate a lot, I didn't really know how to take that first step. I would often just sit in a state where I wasn't happy. I wanted to change, but I didn't know how to change. And because I had that, what would happen is the people that were around me, they would almost speak for me. You know, growing up as a kid, I had people that would speak for me because I couldn't stand up and take an opinion for myself. You know, again, going into the environment that I used to be in, people would speak for me, and in that they would speak down to me. So life is obviously hierarchical, as we know, but because I had no idea of my meaning, I would just used to let people determine my place in the world for me. And more often than not, that was a very much shortcoming of what I'm actually capable of. You know, I was always like a second-class citizen. I was always earning less. I was always the broke guy and stuff like that. And when people will tell you these things, you begin to believe them. Whereas if you take that on the chin and go the opposite way, you go against the grain, if you can actually be in tune with your why, understand who it is that you are, and tell the world who you are, it's going to work in your favour a lot more, because if you don't, the world's going to do it for you, as we've just discovered with me there. So that's a very, very powerful lesson on developing your why and, you know, telling the world who you are. Now, the next thing I've literally just picked up from a book this morning, and we were always told when we was younger that, you know, practice makes perfect, and, you know, if you show up, you'll get good at something. And there is a lot of truth in that. You know, you can't really achieve anything if you're not willing to put in the work. But most people, what they do, and you see this in the gym, used to see this in the gym all the time, people simply go to the gym and they think that as soon as they walk through those doors, as soon as they're scanning with a QR code, that something magical happens. And they don't have to go there. They could get a little pump on. They could go there, talk to the friends. They could sit on the cardio for an hour and do nothing. You know, they could have a mega high incline and be holding onto the handles. And as long as they go out those doors, they think that something's going to change. And they think that, you know, they'll just magically make progress. And what's happening is, sure, they may be practicing, sure, they may be showing up, but it's not enough to create change. If you want your body to change, you need to give it a reason to do so. So practice makes consistency. However, perfect practice makes perfect. This is why you'll see elite level athletes, things that they do, stuff that we can't even fathom. I'm talking Goggins, Kobe, Jordan, all the greats, you know, Usain Bolt. All of these people have rigorous training cycles, intense. They train with the intent to change. They don't just show up and just kick up. Like Ronaldo doesn't just show up and kick a ball around, does he? He literally puts in the work. He lives and breathes his career. And perfect practice makes perfect. They have the right team around them. They train with the intensity. They don't just practice to be consistent. They practice to get the frigging job done. They practice for the end result. Now, I've had a lot of experience in sales and stuff like that, and often you have KPIs within sales, and you're always based off of the result that you get. Doesn't matter what you say on the phone or how many opportunities that you get. What they judge you off of is how many leads and sales that you can get. Now, if I was just practicing to be consistent, you know, practicing to just get on the phone and speak to people and get opportunities, that's okay. I may learn a couple of things here and there, and it will help get some leads, but it's not good enough. I will be out of a job, and because I'm not hitting KPIs, I will be fired. Perfect practice makes perfect. You need to practice perfectly to make sure that you're getting the result, because at the end of the day, if you've got a target to, you know, look in the mirror and feel confident, no one's going to look at you and think, you know what, that guy woke up at 3 a.m, so I therefore respect him. They're going to look at you and think, right, is this guy confident? Does he look good? Does he have a well-built physique? Therefore, am I going to respect him or not? So it's the idea that you need to practice for the result, practice for getting the job done. Because if you're just practicing to be consistent, you're going to be wasting your time. There's going to be some results there, of course, but it's the equivalent of going to the gym and getting a pump every day. You'll make some progress, but it wears off within a couple of months. New begins, that's what it is. So you need to make sure that you're training with the intent to change, and take a lot from the pros, the elites, the top guys, the sharks at the end, because success does leave clues, 100%. And it sort of ties into the next point, which is just simply do more and be more. We focused a lot on the modern day agenda of the world and how things are very much under attack, how there's certain, you know, agendas being pushed on us, what we say and what we can't say. We've got cancel culture and stuff like that, which is completely retarded. Someone try to come cancel me and watch what happens. You can't cancel someone who doesn't subscribe to being cancelled. It doesn't work that way. It's a one-dimensional method of thinking, and it's stupid so much that it's hilarious. But yeah, in a world that suppresses the easy option, there's a lot of stuff going on that teaches you to, you know, have a bad health day, have a day off because it's snowing or it's raining or something like that, and get all cozied up in bed. That's shit. That's weak. That's whack. You need to look at yourself, right? And a simple exercise is, when you go to bed tonight, time's 11:04 right now. You go to bed tonight, you know, 10, 11, 9, whatever it is, just rest your head and just be silent, just be alone with your thoughts, And I just want you to ask yourself, could you have done more? Are you thinking in your head when you lay on a bed at night and you're thinking, you know what, I went to the gym today, but I left a bit early because I was a bit tired, or I felt like I'd done all the 10 reps, but I had about 2 extra more in the tank, or, I could have read those extra pages today, but I skipped it and went on TikTok instead. If you're thinking those things at night when your head hits the pillow, and this is no judgment, I do this all the time, and more often than not, you'd be surprised the shit that I have to do. Just genuinely do that for me, and if you can find that there's answers to those questions, like you should be doing more reps, or you should be eating those meals cleaner, start doing it. And just like that, you can demolish your competition. The bar is set so low for the modern day man and even modern day woman that anything is possible. You can become a CEO within seconds. You can literally, earn thousands and thousands within months if you apply yourself correctly. You can make your wildest dreams come true just by doing more and being more. Because the modern day world doesn't want you to do more and be more. It wants you to be what they want. It wants you to be controllable. It wants you to be a cog in the wheel that just goes round and round. Where to the point where eventually you're just going to be a number. Your assets aren't going to be your assets. Your house isn't going to be your house. It's going to be their house and their assets. And you'll get it if you're a good boy and, you sit, beg, roll over, get all the jobs and all that type of stuff. So if you can tell the world who you are, do more, train like a pro, be intense with your training, track stuff, be a fucking machine, I promise you, you're going to demolish anything in your path, and you're going to get a lot of people on their toes and their backs up against the wall. And I guess as well, it leads into master what's in your control. Again, we use lockdown, very, very easy example. 2 things in life, 2 things only. Things in your control, things out of your control. The more that you focus on things outside of your control, the less control that you have. It's a very, very famous quote taken from Marcus Aurelius, very, very famous Stoic philosopher. Stoicism has pretty much reformed my entire life. I have tattoos that I'm going to get of it. It's something that has just done tremendous things for me. And ultimately, the more that you master what's in your control, the more control that you have. And there are certain things in man that are within your control. And looking good, making sure that your hygiene's on point, making sure that you read, making sure that you're calm, you're emotionally correct. If you can wake up, if you can master your morning, wake up, go to the gym, sink a litre of water, train intensively, hit some PBs, make sure that you put a suit on. But don't just put a suit on, iron that suit, iron your shirt. Don't just do a knot, do a Windsor knot, Don't just listen to YouTube and music and Spotify. Learn something, put on a podcast, listen to this podcast and listen to more of them. And you'll find that the more that you can master those things, especially as a man, you'll find that when you do come under things that are out of your control, you can actually control them better. You can turn what would be a perceived loss into a win. And that sounds bold, but I promise you that's true. You try being told bad news or doing something that goes against your way when you're having a fresh haircut, you look sick, you feel good, you feel powerful. Of course, it may be a loss, but your approach to that situation is going to be more powerful and more positive, as opposed to being, sappy and weak and tired and groggy and looking like shit as approach to it. And it's almost like that scene in Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not even going to ask if any of you have seen that, because if you're watching this podcast, we all know that we've seen it. And there's that scene when he is about to denounce Stratton. He was about to leave, and he goes, obviously, I'm not fucking leaving, and all that type of stuff. And he goes, I've been a rich man, and I've been a poor man. I choose rich every time. And he ends up going on and saying his speech and stuff like that. And he goes, at least when I have problems, I show up in a $2,000 suit and a Rolls Royce, and I get to face them head on like that. And it's a little very, very simple statement. I probably paraphrased it a bit out and incorrect there, but the idea here is that if you can look good, if you can master your appearance, master what's in your control, simple stuff, brush your teeth, comb your hair, don't just towel dry it and brush it and leave it in the morning. Put some effort into your appearance. When you do come under problems, when you do come under shit that you don't really want to face, you can at least face it looking good and feeling good and, knowing that you've put in the fucking work. And it's going to mean that the outcome of that situation is going to be very, very different. It's going to be in your favour. When you can do those things, you basically create a subconscious or conscious. I'm very conscious. You start off subconscious, but it eventually develops into a daily practice. You basically become open-minded. Now, when you are wanting to achieve a goal, when you are wanting to do great things, you develop a sense of tunnel vision, which is really, really good. But it's one-dimensional, it's flawed. This is why you need a coach. This is why you need external people in your corner. And the reason why is because when you're open-minded, you can take on a multi-dimensional approach to your problems. Problems are everywhere. I can't do this podcast and tell you that achieving your goals is going to be a walk in the park, because it's not. I have daily battles that I face all the time. I'm tired all the time. My body hurts pretty much 6-7 days a week because I'm training twice a day, 6 times a week. This stuff is going to be there all the time. But if you can be open-minded, you can take on new perspectives. You can learn different ways to handle these problems, handle these barriers that you face. And ultimately, the more perspectives you take on, you may just find that you can hop over that barrier. Because instead of facing it head on, you're taking it from the top. And you're literally just being able to jump over that barrier because you think instead of doing it that way, all along it was easier to do it that way. Super, super simple. And I think as well, obviously, when you do become open-minded, it just allows you to control situations a lot better. You know, you could be in something that is way out of your control, that is completely new to you. But if you're open-minded, you can almost just roll with the punches and just make sure that you're being adaptable to everything. It's cringy, but you can almost be like water. You want to be fluid with everything. So yeah, mastering what's in your control and being open-minded is extremely, extremely important. And I think as well, when you are doing these things, everything that we've covered so far, you're going against the grain, you're going against what you've been taught. And I'm talking all the way back from kids. You know, a lot of the thing right now is you go to primary school, go to secondary school, college, university, get a degree, get a job, 9 to 5, you save and you save and you save. You put a deposit down for a house, you get a mortgage, and maybe, just maybe, what happens is you complete the mortgage when you're fucking 45 or however old it is, probably 65 with the price of houses right now, and then you get the mortgage done and you rent it out for maybe, say, £600-700 a month. So you're basically living your entire life to do a £600-700 a month income stream, when if something goes wrong with that house, you've got to pay for it. If you can't sell that house because you haven't got no marketing skills, you can't just list a house and someone's going to buy it, because you've got to understand where your location is, you've got to understand the pricing, the demographic, the market. If you haven't got any understanding of that, because all you've done is go to school, get a degree and just be a cog in a wheel at your 9 to 5 job, you're going to fall short. So you've done all of that for an extra £600-700 a month, and all of that isn't even going to be that much anyway, because you've got a fucking couple of £100,000 house. And this is all that we've been taught. It's literally just work, school, get a house, and so forth. This is 60-70 years ago. Of course, I'd be saying get yourself a house. But right now, there are so many other ways to make money. Money is literally more easier to make than ever. The internet is broken in the most beautiful way. And if you can find just one method, you're going to make a laughable amount of money. Like, there is a big potential to all of us to make fuck you money. And when you are going against this grain, this set agenda that's just been set, you know, get a trade, don't take risks, play it safe, you know, make sure that you got a pension, all of that shit, you become very misunderstood because you're going against what you've been taught. When people are outside their comfort zone, it's going to be met with resistance. And the sad truth of this is that it's going to come from people closest to you. If you go to your parents and say, look, mom, dad, I don't want to go to university because I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to run my own business. Some may be supportive of that, but for the majority, they're going to be shocked. They're going to be, some ways, maybe disappointed. I don't know your home life, I don't know your network or your surroundings, but the salient facts is that you are going to be misunderstood. I need you to become okay with being misunderstood. The reason why this is, and this is a lesson in people, is because when you tell them something about what you want to achieve in the future, they can only judge you based off of what they see right now and what they've seen in the past from you. So a lot of us being entrepreneurs right now, we're not rich, we're not 7, 8 figure, 9 figure, 10 figure guys, are we? You know, we're coming up, we want good things in the world. So because we're not where we are right now, when we say that we want to achieve our goals, people are going to look at what we're saying and they're going to link that to what they see in front of them and what you've achieved in the past, which generally, if you're sort of early 20s, all you've really done now is go to school, go to college, maybe get a diploma or a degree. So that really doesn't link up to being an 8-9 figure guy with a Bugatti and, you know, watches, you know, out the gazoo. Like, it doesn't link up. So the resistance comes in because they're using those two pieces of data to link that, to think, can this guy really be an 8-9 figure guy? Of course he can't. So the resistance is going to come there because how they judge you is based off of what they see in front of you. So you are going to be misunderstood, but you need to take that on the chin and simply keep going. If you can become okay with being misunderstood, there'll come a day when you do make those goals happen and you will shock people. You know, people will instantly think, you know what, this guy was about it, this guy was about that life, and everything that he set out to do, he achieved. And it's simple stuff like that will just help you go a long way. So we're going to wrap up the podcast now. We're coming up to like 25 minutes now. We don't like these solos to be too long. But yeah, like I say, let me know what you thought, and as always, feedback is greatly appreciated.